Good evening and happy Tuesday. You are live on Intellectual Radio with Justina Winfrey, David Peterson, and Helen Wakefield. And this evening we are discussing Chicago's historical mayoral election along with music and politics and the murder and unfortunate death of Brother Nipsey Hussle. Brother David Peterson, you're live with us right now. Thank you so much for connecting.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and please forgive me for not being able to be in the studio with you guys. But I wanted to make sure that I called in so that we can have this very important conversation.
Excellent. So, just wanted to get your thoughts on the mayoral race and the current runoff. We have a lot of constituents who are just completely perplexed. They don't know who to vote for. And with the polls currently closing, we'll be discussing the updates with regards to who's leading in the polls. Just want to get your feedback on the current state of Chicago. And as I understand, you are currently working on a Black Agenda update for the city, along with the group of others. And we're all collectively working on this project together. So what are your thoughts on the Chicago mayoral race?
Well, just to start off, you know what I mean? I think that we've truly been blessed and the ancestors have heard our cries, and I think that they are using our generation, the millennial, the zennial generation, finish a battle that's been going on for generations. I say all that to say that because of the leadership, because of the mentorship of people that have been, kind of raising me since I've been a teenager, people like Reverend Fellows, people like Cecil, and them taking the initiative to go forward and say, look, this is the National Black Agenda. You need to make sure that you study this and dissect this and make sure that you understand why this is important. That put us in a position where we were now able to craft a conversation that had never been had in the city to this magnitude before. So, because of that, you have all of these different spin-offs of the Black Agenda because of the groundwork that they did, and I think that's important because what it does is it empowers us as voters. You know what I mean? So many times because of the elected officials that we've had in office, we're under the perception that this whole process is a dictatorship. In actuality, it's a democracy. So it's created for us to engage. It's created for civic engagement. It's created for feedback. And that's what we now have the capacity to do. So regardless of who wins, we're at a different place now. We know exactly what we want. We know how to ask for it. We've already put it out there. And I believe that on the accountability side, we're going to be standing on these elected officials in order to deliver these measurable outcomes that I already know is what we need.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I've been a part of the inception and creation of the updated Black Agenda from 2012 on through 2017. And it's a blessing to have organizations like yours vested and interested in updating the Black Agenda to create a more local agenda so that our young people and even the elders can have a quick reference guide to understand what the issues are and what the solutions are, and to open up the conversation ultimately so that we can all have input into the agenda. Give me one moment. I'm going to connect us all in. Sister Helen Wakefield is calling in. Sister Helen.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful to have you on right now live on Intellectual Radio with the Justice Team. Brother David Peterson is currently on with us. Brother David? Excellent. So we're all on right now, and we're just discussing the Black Agenda. Sister Helen, I know you've been a part of the groundwork too back in 2014 with the African American Family Commission, and in 2015 with the National Black Agenda questionnaire that we rolled out collectively. Mm-hmm. The long nights working on that questionnaire for all of the mayoral candidates at that time and all of the aldermanic candidates. And Brother David was just giving kudos to the fact that the Black Agenda now is a civic engagement tool, and that's what we intended for it to be. At that time, back in 2011, I was actually the youngest millennial at the table, and I was there working with all of the elders. We were meeting at Brother Harold Lucas's spot at the time. It was in Bronzeville, the Bronzeville Tourism Bureau, and we were meeting regularly along with Brother James Hill, Brother Reven, Dr. Marks, Dr. Frazier. Cecile came in probably around 2000 for the 2015 update of the Black Agenda. And she's taken it to another level with an international piece, thankfully. And I've been following her with that component. So they'll be rolling that out shortly. But Brother David is leading a local component for the community to have more input, to have solutions and public policy recommendations at the Chicago local level, so that people can understand that the Black agenda is not just a national agenda. These issues affect us all, whether it be at the local level, the state level, or the international level. And we have the subject matter experts in place to address these issues and bring the solutions and give the steps on how we can collectively bring the solutions and see the change in our community. So, Sister Helen, just give us some feedback about the mayoral race. And I know you have some insight as an attorney, and the fact that you've been around for quite some time in this righteous work that you do.
Well, what can I say? The mayoral race. Only thing that I can say about that one is, then you just had to go out and vote. You know what I mean? Who you chose on which side of the coin. We know we're making history in regards to we're going to have a Black woman, African American woman, a woman that's going to actually be mayor of the city of Chicago. I think a lot of people, they want to change, but the thing about it is that hopefully they did their research. Sometimes it's best to really dig a little deeper to find out who's behind the person instead of just what they're saying, because we've got Justina and I have a inside joke, finesse. And so we know that a person can finesse you and, kind of get you where they want to, give you the right answer, but who's really backing them? So, we'll see what happens with that in a little bit. In regards to the Black agenda, I was looking for it. I couldn't find it on my phone, but there's an actor that came out today, Black fellow, and I can't remember what, you might be able to find it and Google it or whatever, but he was actually speaking on behalf of Donald Trump. He said that, for so many years, he voted for Barack Obama, and that Barack Obama never backed the Black agenda, and that he presented aspects of the Black agenda to Donald Trump, and Trump is embracing it. And, whatever that means. Because I actually had an opportunity to sit with Cecile, Dr. Frazier, oh God, I can't remember. It's a bunch of us. And that was last year. And we were with a few community persons, and what they wanted to do was actually send the Black agenda to Omarosa when she was actually working for Trump. And Trump actually, before he ran in November or whatever it was, 2017, 16, whatever, put out what he calls the Black American New Deal 10-point plan. And so you can actually Google that and see that and see what it is. It really isn't anything as far as any substance, but there's various titles. And one of them was preserving and it doesn't say African American, it says the Black church, the historically Black colleges and universities, and blah, 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 blah. So with that being said, the letter that this community group wanted to send out was hey, 45, here's the Black agenda, and we answer these particular aspects which line up with your 10 points. And we are wanting to come to the White House to do X, Y, and Z. Well, love my black people, but sometimes we get hung up in so many aspects of how we need to do this and how we can't do that. And so it never really went out as a letter that everybody did because people started falling by the wayside. But I actually did send a letter to old Trump, and I actually got an answer back. And it was pretty much of a form letter, but he did at the end answer the about the Black agenda. And while he didn't say the Black agenda, it says, we're glad for all you do in your community and kind of blah, 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 blah. Now, what I think that we need to do at this point in time in Chicago, because we're getting a new mayor, either way it goes, is that all of the different people that were in their respective disciplines, that we need to make sure if we're using the Black agenda, the one that was edited, if we're using the one that was a more comprehensive document, that we actually come together and that we actually couch a Black agenda. And the reason, and I'm talking about solidify it and make sure that this is the document that we are all moving forward and speaking from. There was a nonprofit that was actually called the New Jewish Agenda, and it was based on the New Jewish Agenda being the four-corner document. They rolled it out to be a 501c3, and they actually moved forward. And you can still go online and look up the New Jewish Agenda. And they even talk about, there's a lot of feedback on why did the new agenda go from, I think it was from 80 something or whatever to maybe 2000, whenever it ended. What caused it to end? The thing that caused it to end was maybe they were too vigilant in one particular area, and they did not look at all the different areas and spend the time to look at all the different areas and actually solidify what was going to be their particular voice. They led really strongly with the LGBTQ for some, and that might have caused their demise. But whatever it is, I think we can learn from that model, because one thing a little old white woman told me a long time ago, I used to always say, I'm not political. And she's like, you know what, come here. She said, and I got very angry at her then too, because I probably was like in my late 20s, early 30s. Now I'm in my late 50s. She said, you're too smart of a person to say that, young lady. She said, because you're talking about you're not political. She says, that's like saying, I'm not playing football, and everybody is playing football, and everybody has on football uniform. They're throwing the ball, and you're standing out there with a swimsuit on. This is a political world. People are coming to the table with their agenda. And if you do not have an agenda, she said, then you might as well be at the table, because best believe that everybody has an agenda. So I'm saying all that to say we need to maybe go back in, spend that time to look at those different four-corner documents, tweak it, edit it, whatever we do, and come out with a document, and we all be on the same page with that document and move forward, knowing how we're going to engage in our various action items, tactics, whatever, and that we come out as a well-oiled machine. Because if we don't, we're going to be with a new mayor, same old, same old. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you, Sister Helen, for the insight. Quickly, we have the election results coming in.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so Lori Lightfoot is leading with 62,840 votes, 75.9% of the vote thus far. Tony Preckwinkle has 19,910 votes, 24.1% of the vote. In the city treasurer runoff, Melissa Conyers Irvin is leading with 46,791 votes, 59.4% of the vote, to Amia Pawar, 31,993 votes currently, 40.6%. Alderman Oh, in the 5th Ward runoff, William Calloway is at 278 votes thus far, 48.9% of the vote. This is very close, you all. Leslie Hairston is at 291 votes so far, 51.1% of the vote. In the 6th Ward, Deborah Foster Bonner has 762 votes to Roderick Sawyer's 815 votes. In the 15th Ward, Raymond Lopez is at 778 votes to Rafael Rafayanez at 342 votes. In the 16th Ward, Stephanie D. Coleman is at 619 votes to Tony Folks at 268. In the 20th Ward runoff, Nicole Johnson is at 52 votes, with Jeanette B. Taylor leading with 80 votes. In the 21st Ward, Howard Brookins Jr. is at 1,445 votes to Marvin McNeil's 1,302 votes. You all, this race is very close with the aldermanic elections. In the 25th Ward runoff, Alex Acevedo is at 665 votes to Brian Lopez's 805 votes. In the 30th Ward, Jessica Gutierrez is at 632 votes to Ariel Rebollas' 1,032 votes. In the 31st Ward runoff, Felix Cardona Jr. is at 444 votes, with Milagros Milisanto at Santiago at 322 votes. In the 33rd Ward runoff, Deborah Mell is at 376 votes to Rosana Rodriguez Sanchez at 422 votes. In the 39th Ward, we have Robert Murphy at 1,609 votes to Samantha Nugent at 2,100 votes. In the 40th Ward runoff, it's pretty close. Patrick J. O'Connor, 1,679 votes to Andre Vasquez's 1,658 votes. In the 43rd Ward, we have Derek Lindblom at 0 votes so far, and Michelle Smith. Yeah, that sounds a little odd. Sounds like they'll be doing some.
You didn't vote for himself?
Yeah, Michelle Smith at 759. Oh my goodness, yay! To the 46th Ward, James Kappelman is only at 490 votes. Marianne Lalonde is at 724 votes. In the 47th Ward, Matt Martin is at 1,861 votes. Michael Negron is at 1,082 votes. And everything's currently being updated, you all. This is live data right now, and we're getting the election results live as we speak. And this is a very exciting time. We'll continue to update you as we have the conversation this evening with the current race data and who is currently winning. So, hey, shout out to Brother Will Calloway in the 5th Ward. Keep it up, Brother Will. God is with you.
What ward was that somebody only had 42 votes and it was only 80 something other votes? Do they have anybody in that ward living in that ward?
So yes, Sister Nicole. What's that about? Nicole Johnson has 52 votes in the 20th Ward. And the 20th Ward race was extremely saturated with candidates. They had a lot of candidates running for office at the time. And so Nicole Johnson made it to the runoff along with Jeanette B. Taylor. And I'm familiar with Sister Nicole Johnson. I'm acquainted with Sister Jeanette Taylor. Jeanette Taylor has 80 votes to Nicole Johnson's 52 votes currently.
Oh, That is it a large ward?
Yes, it is a fairly large ward.
Yeah, I'm just saying that seems like a really low turnout.
That was Kevin Bailey's ward, and you had an experience with Brother Kevin Bailey.
It just seemed like that was such a little turnout
compared to the 21st ward, where you had a larger turnout. Where Howard Brookins in the 21st ward has 1,445 votes to Marvin McNeil's 1,302 votes, and then in the 40th ward, Andre Vasquez, even though he ran into a situation as a battle rapper where he made some really, really unfavorable, distasteful comments, but as my colleagues would say, who are poets and battle rappers, they had to remind me that in battle rap, the gloves are off. There is no way that you can have a mute button or a censor button in battle rap. And the the O'Connor team circulated a Facebook and YouTube page along with the website pointing out the ill things that Andre Vasquez said. But again, it was battle rap, and he did attack a young lady. It was brutal. It was really bad. I don't know if you all had the opportunity to review, but it seems like the voters are unfazed by the rhetoric that had been put out there about Andre Vasquez. So going forward, he is only down by like 21 votes currently to Patrick O'Connor's 1,679 votes. So as of right now, since we're talking about battle rap and it's about 7:29, nearly 7:30 p.m., let's go ahead and discuss music in politics and how it impacts our young people, how it impacts our lives on a daily basis. Recently, Brother Nipsey Hussle was gunned down in front of his store in LA, and it's unfortunate that he was making a lot of major moves in the community. He didn't leave the community. He loved the community. And although people try to say it was gang related, as they've tried to say that recent shootings and murders during this election cycle have been gang related, we all know that the politricks of politics in Chicago is no different than the politricks in the music industry. And these are not conspiracy theories. These are facts that even go back to the Tupac assassination. So, Brother David, if you have a moment, can you chime in on the situation with Nipsey Hussle? Brother David? Okay. Sister Helen, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. I was hoping Brother David was still on, but let me see if we can get him back on quickly. The situation with Nipsey Hussle recently, he was murdered, and this brother was involved in real estate, giving back to the community, teaching the community wealth building, and he was developing a documentary about Dr. Sebi. And yes, an elder who we believe, and majority of I won't say majority, many people from the United States and around the world I've read believe that he was murdered while being detained. He opened up a facility in Honduras to offer holistic treatment to people with cancer and different ailing diseases, HIV, AIDS. If you had epilepsy, he could cure it. And he was using a holistic approach and completely countered Western medicine. In New York, back in the mid to late 80s, they took Dr. Sebi to court because Dr. Sebi posted in a newspaper article that he could cure cancer and HIV AIDS. Well, they took him to court, and the judge said, bring in one person that you've cured. Dr. Sebi brought in multiple people. Off the top of my head, I believe he brought in about 75 people. I can verify that information. But ultimately, the judge asked the prosecution that brought the case, hey, did you even verify the facts here? Did you even see if this man was curing people? And they said, no, we just assumed that he was, false advertising. And sure enough, they exonerated Dr. Sebi. Well, not exonerated him. He ultimately was able to have his name cleared. And he moved on, went to Honduras. Lisa Left Eye Lopez was actually, when she died, I won't say murdered, but again, the conspiracy theorists would say that she was murdered, that it's no mistake that she rolled off of a hill in Honduras. She was highly advocating for Dr. Sebi and his treatments, and suddenly she died. And the same thing with Dr. Sebi. He was in police custody when he suddenly died. So his company was taken over by people that his wife came on. She spoke out publicly about the fact that her husband's company had been under siege out of nowhere by a group that she was not familiar with, but that the documents were all fabricated. And here goes Brother David calling back in. I'm going to connect us all in. Hey, Brother David.
Hey, I just was listening to the elevator music. I'm glad I'm back on now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to connect us back in, okay?
All right.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I'm going to get Sister Helen back on the line. Forgive me, I thought you were on the call. So what we're discussing now is the documentary with Brother Nipsey Hussle and Dr. Sebi.
Okay.
And just wanted you to initially, I had asked if you could chime in about that situation with Nipsey Hussle and music and politics, and the documentary that Nipsey Hussle was getting ready to roll out about Dr. Sebi.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is it's important that we do have this conversation, because there have been a lot of conspiracy theories about what was going on, and from the ground, boots on the ground in LA. When we finally found out that it really wasn't that. It was actually a disgruntled person that he knew for some years, that actually had a problem with him saying, I don't want you to bring this type of drama around my business. And that person, pretty much, who clearly has some kind of mental illness, shot him for that. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of street politics that were going on with that. So some people were saying it was gang related. Some people were saying it was this, it was that. But after everything came out, even LAPD have confirmed that it was the gentleman that we're speaking of. And this is someone a little younger than him, who was basically just upset that he wasn't, that Nipsey was saying, hey, this isn't the type of energy that I want in my space. And that's important, because a lot of the times people who make it out of the community don't want to come back for that very reason. So this is just such a detrimental issue, because this is another proof of concept that, man, sometimes when you're in these areas, people don't want to see you come up. People are they feel intimidated, they feel slighted, just by the fact that you're successful. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate, because that brother had a lot to give. He was doing some great things in the neighborhood, and he was basically an example of what cultural economic development is. And that being on our local agenda, that being item number 7. International tourism and cultural economic development. He's one of those people that shows us what people in the entertainment should be doing. When we speak in terms of cultural economic development, we speak of people benefiting directly from our history, heritage, and culture. One of those byproducts of our culture being entertainment, and music. And, it's important that when people get these $1 million deals, these multi-million-dollar deals, they want to come back to the community and invest, because these guys, are making a lot of money, and they could easily be part of the solution in buying up abandoned buildings in these neighborhoods, redeveloping on these lots, you know what I mean? But nobody's going to want to do it if they feel like people in the neighborhood are going to feel slighted by their success. So this is really a travesty for us.
Wow. So quickly, we are getting the election results back in. In the mayor's runoff, Lori Lightfoot is leading at 190,489 votes. Tony Preckwinkle is currently at 65,674 votes. For city treasurer, we have Melissa Conyers Irvin leading 145,245 votes to Amaya Pawar's 98,885 votes. In the 5th Ward runoff, we have William Calloway at 2,526 votes to Leslie Hairston's 2,593 votes. Deborah Foster Barner in the 6th Ward, 2,310 votes to Roderick T. Sawyer's 2,602 votes. In the 15th Ward runoff, Raymond Lopez is at 1,546 votes to Rafael Rafayanez at 1,044 votes. In the 16th Ward, Stephanie Coleman, 1,936 votes to Tony Folks at 953. In the 20th Ward, we have Nicole Johnson at 908 votes to Jeanette Taylor's 1,328 votes. In the 21st Ward, Howard Brookins Jr. at 4,467 to Marvin McNeil's 3,964 votes. Alex Acevedo is actually trailing with 46.6% of the vote to Byron Lopez's 53.4% of the vote. In the 30th Ward, Jessica Gutierrez is at 44.3% of the vote to Ariel Rebollas at 55.7% of the vote. Felix Cardona is at 56.5% of the vote to Millie Santiago's 43.5% of the vote. In the 33rd Ward, we have Deborah Mell at 50.4% of the vote to Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez at 49.6% of the vote. In the 39th Ward, Robert Murphy is at 43.3% of the vote to Samantha Nugent's 56.7% of the vote. In the 40th Ward runoff, Andre Vasquez is leading with 52.2% of the vote to Patrick O'Connor's 47.8% of the vote. In the 43rd Ward, we have Derek Lindblom still at 0 to Michelle Smith's 100% of the vote so far. So there may be some questionable things going on. We're not really sure who's running the polling place in the 43rd Ward, but I'm sure we may hear some issues of recounts possibly. In the 46th Ward, we have James Kappelman leading with 51.0% of the vote to Marianne Lalonde's 48.9% of the vote. It's still close, you all. In the 47th Ward, Matt Martin is leading with 63.5% of the vote to Michael Negron's 36.5% of the vote. The election results are still coming in, and this is a close race for the aldermanic elections in the aldermanic candidates currently in the runoff. So we shall soon see who will take these new seats in the spring. Back to
look like Lori, huh?
Yeah, and it looks like Sister Melissa Conyers Irvin will be the first city treasurer from the west side of Chicago, and she will actually be one of the first seated city elected officials from the west side, coming from the west side as an elected official. So God bless her. Kudos. And her husband is actually the incumbent that I ran against in the 28th ward. So prayerfully, she is definitely ready, and God bless her. I'm acquainted with Sister Melissa Conyers Irvin, and she's a lot different than her husband, and I'll leave it at that. So prayerfully, she'll be the right city treasurer for the city of Chicago. So,
so with all that being said, what is our next step?
Accountability.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the trends that we've seen in city government particularly is a very, very bad vibration from staffers, if you will. There are a lot of times that people submit proposals. They try to engage these elected officials, and they're caught by what we like to call them gatekeepers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think that this time, because there's been such an energy with civic engagement, that we need to definitely try to institute where we need to move to institute an ordinance, a negligent staffer ordinance. And whether that means we institute that at the county level, whether that means we institute it at the city level, we need to put safeguards in place to make sure that the constituents' voices are heard. Because now that the honeymoon is about to be over, and then all of the hoopla of election season is over, now the real work is gonna begin. And what's gonna typically happen is people forget about all the promises they made on the campaign trail. And we absolutely, positively cannot allow that to happen. It cannot go on business as usual as it has been before. I remember when Rahm Emanuel was running last time in the runoff, there a lot of people were rooting for him and supporting him. And then when he got in office, people were just left there with their hands hanging out, and we just absolutely cannot allow that to happen this time, and I think that that's the most important thing, so, a lot of us that have been organizing have already started to organize around this whole idea of an accountability council that will mirror the city council. It will give us the capacity in each ward to say, hey, look, these are our concerns. These are the assets in our community. And we want to make sure that, we consistently bring it to these elected officials. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm most excited about, just to see the post initiative for that. We actually started organizing around that when in the first part of the election. And I've seen a couple of people who lost, kind of saying that they want to, do that now. But I think that for the integrity of the process, it's important that we allow it to be free of politics, free of, political agendas. And it needs to be all about the Black agenda.
And my thing with that is we have so many different groups that are organizing and doing this that we never actually have one. And if you look at the LGBTQ plus, if you look at, I'm going to go back to the new Jewish agenda. Whether they like each other, lump it, dump it, they all come together, they solidify a four-corner document, and they go out and they march with that as the blueprint. The thing about it also is behind the scenes, they are training, running and supporting their people. Also, when you go to the table, it is not, we need to hold you accountable. You can't hold me accountable. Just a person can't hold you accountable. What you got to go in and you have to play hardball as hard as the next. When you go into that door and you go into that room, you already have your people lined up. You have your demand. It's not an ask. It's a demand. It's like, this is who we're putting in here. This is so-and-so, and they're going to be in X, Y, and Z. And I think our problem is that we go in with our hand out. We have too many people running this, that, and the other. Well, my belief is the sigabooga-baga-boo-ba-ba. And if we don't believe the sigabooga-baga-ba-ba with the holistic twist to the blah, 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 then we got problems. Whatever you do with that, you do with that. But when we go into that room, we all agreed on this individual is going to be this person that has been trained, that has our agenda. They're going to be put in this spot. When you go behind the door, I'm going to, I'm not going to disclose on air some things that I've done with various political persons. But when that door closes, you don't come out with nothing. This person is going in here, and this is why they're going in here. And when you leave out, that person is in the position that you want them put in, and you keep moving forward. But we have to have a blueprint, a plan of attack, and it can't be this person over here, that person over there, this one there, if we're going to move forward as a people. That's all I got to say. Because I've gone to too many tables with people over the last, coming back to Chicago over the last 6 years, and I've been at the table in all white arenas with nothing but 2-3 blacks in my side, and I'm talking about everybody came out with what everybody needed, because went in there with all the documentation, like they say. I'm not legally trained for nothing. With all the evidence, and be like, I know. This is where we going. This is where we're going to be. And that's where we all were. You can't go in there playing. You don't go to war playing. My father always told me, first hit's supposed to kill. Ain't no fight.
That's right.
You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
in there fighting. I'm fighting. We fighting. Some people windmilling. Some people know taekwondo. Others, you know what I mean? They got a knife. We're not on the same, this is it. This is it. And you move with that. And it might not be what you really want at this step. But if that is the good for the majority, we move it, we stick it. Like they say, stick it, and then go to the next one. Stick it, go to the next one.
I think one of the most dangerous things. I think one of the most dangerous things is that
Latinos and and I'm not a proponent of the LGBTQ. I'm not one, but I have some mentees that are, and I'm telling you, they'll go in the right room. They might call each other all type of this, that, and another. But when they come out with that agenda, baby, boom, like a well-oiled machine. And anybody knows anything about LGBTQ plus. They got a plus sign on it now. They have all types of debates about the queers and gays and being heavy and everything. But when it comes to their political agenda, look at what has happened from the top down. And look, when that is what they come out and they wear their banner with their sexuality, they come out with a force. They've got a plan.
Okay, can I interject now?
Yes.
I think one of the most dangerous things in our community is the insistence on us speaking as a monolith. And I think that because that's the case, it breeds pretentious behavior and undermining tactics. So when you ask a lot of the people that are engaged in the political world, what did you major in school? Or and very seldom do they say political science, or very seldom do they say budget and fiscal management. When you ask them what have they done, the last 10 years, in the realm of politics, very seldom is it as a practitioner passing legislation, writing bills, things of that nature. Now, you will have some isolated incidents, but most of the time that's not the case. And I think that's the case because the majority of our leaders have led from a clergy standpoint. So what happens is we get all of these emotionally driven narratives that wind up being us pontificating essentially, and people, portraying themselves as if they know exactly what's going on politically, but they don't, and that's unfortunate because that is 9 times out of 10 the passion that is, driving us. Now, when someone comes along and they do have a very specific plan with measurable outcomes, with next steps, with documented research and proofs of concept, most of the time, if they're not the most popular person, if they haven't been in those specific rooms or they're not in the club, their ideas are pushed to the side. Primary example with the condensed version of the Black agenda. With each one of those agenda items, which are 7, we have measurable outcomes that line up directly with the 2015 to 2019 consolidated plan. That means that we've found where all the money is, and we've found out exactly what needs to be done in order to execute these plans. But people will continue to undermine that process, that hard work, that dedication, that specificity, and say, oh, we don't have a Black agenda. Oh, what are we going to do anyway? And it's just like, well, we just told you what we were going to do. You know what I mean? So what happens is, in a space where people don't necessarily need validation, and then they go to just do the work, then here comes the narrative of, oh, well, we're not with them. But what this person is saying makes sense. You know what I mean? So where we are now is we do have some measurable outcomes. We do have some tangibles, and we have done the research. We've combed through these documents, city, state, county. And, at this point, we're just trying to get it done. So when we go to the room with people, we're not saying, can you give us anything, or asking. We're saying, hey, this is what this is what we'd like to get done. This is the only assistance we need from you. Most of the time, we're doing their homework for the candidate and saying, look, this is all we need you to do, because the majority of the political elected officials don't have the acumen in those areas: project management, organizational behavior, budget and fiscal management, all of these different things that are very, very specific. They don't have those things. And us in the younger generation, we generally get undermined by those older than us, because they feel, because they've been doing it longer as a practitioner, that they're right, when they won't acknowledge the fact that they've been doing it wrong for a long period of time. Prior to this election, we've had ample amounts of people who are elected officials who are Black. You know what I mean? We have so many Black elected officials, and we're content with someone being in office who's Black and them not being competent. I don't care if someone is purple. If they're in that seat, they need to be willing to allow that seat to be ran by the people that elected them. We're not looking for leaders. We're looking for elected officials. That means we put you in office to serve our interests. You know what I mean? And I think that, another false narrative is that a lot of the times we're the only the community that's broken off into fragments, and that itself is not true. You know what I mean? You have the Italians, you have the Irish, you have the Jewish, you have the Russian, you have all of these different segments of the quote unquote white community that are not always on the same page. And we saw that in the election with all of the different people, Daley, Joyce. It wasn't valid. So we weren't the only ones that were broken up. And I think that we cast that spell that says we're the only ones that are messed up, or we're the only ones that are not on one accord. I think that's dangerous for us, because that narrative then becomes something that we move forward with in our psyche. You know what I mean? And that is one of the things that harms us.
Well, I think going forward, we have to, one, make sure that we're transparent with the updated Black agenda, that we all have access to it, because all three of us are political scientists. We're all,
that's the deal.
yes, so we're all,
we at the table, you, me, but your average Joe. And when I speak, I'm not speaking about what's happening in the white community and all that. I'm talking about us as a people. And that's fine that there's some that are more connected and some that are political science. Yeah, I'm a trained attorney in Yale political science and Yale and engineering and all that. That's great and that's fine. But if we're trying to reach the masses of us that are not moving forward, we have to be serious, and we have to be understanding that there are not people that are not at our level. And until we're able to actually realize that and say, how can we bring everybody on board, and we're all in the same room and we do understand and that we are on one accord, it's to me, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I've been in various arenas, and yes, you have fighting among, Jewish, Italian, whatever. I'm talking about them. They're moving forward. Whatever. I'm talking about the Black community. The Black community. Why? How do we move forward where we are spending dollars? We know how much money. We've done the research. We have that. How do we move forward in a measurable way whereby our children and our children's children are able to move forward with some degree of wealth and stability and sustainability? That's where I'm coming from.
I believe,
and the reality is that all too often is not happening, and not alienating anybody ever because of age or lack of education, formal education, or how they got it. There's a lot of people that have amazing experience that have come to the table, and we've been there. But what do we do collectively with all our different thoughts and all of our different education and experiences to collectively, as a Black people, literally and figuratively and actually come together where there is a movement, meaning a step, a movement, not a movement as a, oh, this is a moment in time, but how do we make those steps that are actually moving us to that economic development? And it's not 3 steps forward and 5 backwards. What do we need to do?
I think that the first thing is we begin to organize in each one of the wards that are predominantly Black based on census tract and gather up the people in those wards. What we can then do is bring to them the structure for the Accountability Council. After that, the condensed version of the Black Agenda, which was made specifically for what you just said. Everybody is not a student or a scholar like that, so they're not going to have time to comb through that detailed document. So to continue to condense information and spit it out to people so that they can get it in sound bites. If you go to Randolph's Dream Community Development Corporation Facebook page right now, we put up two different videos breaking down the agenda and some next steps. With that, we've connected with people in the entertainment community, the organizing community, young people, older people, etc. And we've all kind of done that, and that process started at the New Black Coalition Roundtable that we have every quarter. But we're not an island, you know what I mean? But I think that the most important thing is for us to condense the information as much as possible so that it can be spat out in sound bites, so that just the average Joe, like you say, can just get it. But more than that, they need walking orders, because a lot of the times, we expect people to come into a room who don't necessarily know what to do in that room, and then everyone has an opinion and something to contribute. And if we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. Some people need to be led. Some people need to follow. So I think that, it's going to take people like yourself, who has such a great background, people like Justina, once again with a great background and some skin in the game, to just do the heavy lifting for the majority of our people and then present it to them all cut up and nice. We can invite everybody in the kitchen with us when we're cooking, but it's not going to turn out the same way if you let the chefs go in there cooking and then serve it to everyone, already well done.
And I understand that, but this is where I am. It's the actual implementation. Is the implementation plan, because I've been in so many rooms since I've been here, because it's different in every different city. Every different state, it's a different dynamic and community. Born and raised in Chicago, 107. Now live in the heart of South Shore. Okay, what is the implementation plan in rolling it out to the brothers that I go, because I'm a domestic missionary now, on the corner that's selling crack, selling loose squares, and the ladies selling booty? How do we roll that out to get them on board? How do we get the ladies and the men that I was at the meeting on Sunday night, that one guy is a doctor of holistic being, something, whatever, heavy hitter, but getting him at 80 something years old to be in there? How do we roll that out to get all of our people? Go in and teach boys and girls who are foster care. Some of them are not even foster care. They don't even have a parent. They're raising their 3 younger brothers and sisters. They're only 13. How do you get them? That's what I'm talking about.
Like I said, I think we should acknowledge the proofs of concept that are already out there.
And what's the website again, Brother David?
The videos that I'm speaking of are on Facebook right now. Randolph's Dream Community Development Corporation.
Okay.
But that heavy lifting going on with that specific population is going on and has been going on. That's why I say it's important that we don't undermine the proofs of concept that are there.
Completely understandable.
Since 2007. Working at reentry.
When can we look at a sample of the updated local agenda that's being rolled out? Because again,
it's floating around online right now.
Okay. Where can we obtain that information at for our listeners?
Randolph's Dream Community Development Corporation.
Randolph's Dream Community Development Corporation on Facebook. Is there a website by chance, or we just go straight to Facebook and search?
No, Just go straight to Facebook because we know that's where everybody is.
Okay, and search Randolph's Dream Community Development Corporation, and I'll be sure to add it in the comments section and share the updated agenda and the agenda that's currently being circulated. Because to my understanding, this agenda has been presented to the mayoral candidates.
Yeah, well, we only had an opportunity to get to Tony Preckwinkle. We reached out several times to try to get it to Life, but we didn't have success in doing that, which I was very disappointed in. Just want to say that on record. But we did have a chance to present it to Tony Preckwinkle, and she was very, very receptive of it, and even went on to tell us a lot of the things we were talking about.
You kind of muffled. You did not have an opportunity to give it to whom, but you gave it to
Lightfoot wasn't receptive. Preckwinkle was. Lightfoot didn't take the time to meet with them to receive the agenda. But Tony Preckwinkle.
She's going to be at the Unity thing. Remember, they just signed the contract with Jesse Jackson. They're going to have a Unity whatever event. Have somebody there and present it to her. Bam.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea. Sounds like a great idea.
Definitely. So
she signed a big old contract, right?
Well, here's the deal. Right. She's leading right now in the polls with.
I take people. They like you signed it. This is what you said here.
Well, at the same time, though, let's be clear. Sister Lightfoot said on record at the Mayor Harold Washington Legacy Committee Forum that even before she spoke or answered any questions, that ultimately she may retract statements in the future. And I can quote her on that.
And they put that contract out on Google where you can read all of it and their signatures are there.
Well,
and as
okay.
an attorney, Sister Justina, you know, that's a four-corner document.
Yes.
Are those legally binding documents?
Or the sisters with the ask of per the Black agenda and to call to her attention that Tony P has one already.
So then I'm wondering, Brother David, if in turn, as you all prepare to roll this out to Lori Lightfoot, that ultimately, because she's leading in the polls right now, 74.2% of the vote to 25.8% of the vote to Tony Preckwinkle. A huge margin, 267,000, nearly 268,000 votes to 93,000 votes that Tony Preckwinkle has. So there may need to be a signature line on that Black agenda, not a pledge, but an actual signature line that she will commit to each of the line items in the Black agenda.
I think that more than the actual now you got as a lawyer. Is making a signature like that a legally binding agreement? Because in terms of CBAs and community benefits agreements, I know a lot of times people say those aren't legally binding agreements, even though someone might sign on to it.
The thing about it, by her being a heavy hitter attorney, because she's not no punk, she ain't gonna sign nothing like that. Because one, they're gonna read it and they're gonna dissect it, and she's gonna pass it to somebody to see are there various nuances or loopholes or whatever. However, you know, you get a photo op on these people and you wind up saying, okay, whatever this Unity event is about, you go there and the photo op or whatever is that she will sit down and that she would give an ear or whatever your, statement will be to hear and to whatever the Black agenda, and that there's a commitment to Black people and their plight or whatever. You know how they read that, whatever, blah 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 blah. That you probably can get, but to hand over a four-corner document to what is she? She probably first tier $1 million corporate female attorney that's underwritten by the FOP. She ain't gonna sign it, but you can get her. I mean, what you want to do is be able to get in the room and be able to go through whatever it is and sincerely get somebody that's gonna assist you in getting what it is that you want out. You know how that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think the more than just getting them to try to give us a quick fix. I think if we can get them to commit to meeting with this accountability council once quarterly so that we can monitor the updates, so we can monitor the implementation of the Black agenda, I think we'll get a lot further, because this is very heavy lifting. We're talking about decades of deprivation, political exclusion, etc. So it's gonna take more than one agenda, one document, one signature in order to get that done. And I think that if we collectively and sister, you two sisters right here, I'm so inspired by you guys, and I think that you guys are the missing ingredient. Just to be frank with you, you know what I mean. If we can connect with energy like that you have, I think that we really are on the right track. And once again, if we can just get them.
What we used to do with the governor of Iowa, there was every quarter, 4 times a year, we had a meeting, a roundhouse meeting with it was like 2-3 hours with the governor. And there were various, very pinpointed issues that, first of all, it was racial profiling on I-80 West. Okay, and we came to them, and we had all of the information that came from that we had, and then we want everything pulled from the state patrol, everything and then we went all the way back. So when we went down there, we had all that information. We said, listen, this is what's here, and there was legislation that was put in place because of that. And so when we were sitting in the room in his face, and it was 4 times a year. And so you got a chance to move whatever it is that you need to move forward. You say this, and then you hold them accountable. And because one time we came down and they didn't have the report, I said, wait, we're not leaving. We didn't just come here for nothing. Where's the report? Well, we'll wait for the state trooper researcher to come in. We're here. And they brought him in, and we read the report. It was so damaging. All these people's faces are beat red. And his name was Vilsack. Vilsack is now the over the Department of Agriculture for the United States. He was governor of Iowa then. And so then after that, we got a chance to do more commitment, more and more steps. And we could see it every step of the way. Yeah, it was painstaking, but come on now. You can ride down I-80 a little bit better. Not that much, but a little bit better. So, I'm just saying, you're right. It's not going to be a quick fix. But if you do come in with those specific demands, if you will, and you have a solid plan and you have dates and or whatever, they can play with their calendar, and you can say, well, every quarter we want to, and then be ready for it.
Well, I will say this.
Something there. To me, I think you do.
Well, I will say this. We have a proof of concept over in Pullman Community at the National A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum. We are the first and only Black labor history museum in the world that represents the legacy of America's first and only Black labor history museum, of which formed America's first Black labor union and received a collective bargaining agreement with the U.S. government. And also forced President Roosevelt to sign Executive Order 8802. So with that being said, I would love to donate our space to be able to organize as frequently and as early as tomorrow. You hear me? I'm ready tonight. And I would love to just invite everybody to come over. Let's set some time and let's just really do this work, and let's get it done. We can talk till we're blue in the face, but let's sit down at that table. Let's dissect and let's get it done.
Now, where are you located?
We're at 10406 South Maryland in Pullman Community, and that's Chicago National Park, so we're far southeast side.
And I was born and raised on 107th and Vernon. I met you.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at God.
Oh, my goodness.
And by the way,
I sat in a table with you. I have your card. It was off of 70-something and some little ladies, whatever. I think you just come back from Washington, D.C.
And by the way, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and just to chime in on that, my father was the first African-American executive for the Pullman Company.
Wow.
Get out of here.
Vincent Winfrey. He was the only Black man wearing a suit. We connected some years back, Brother David, regarding
so you're
that.
Related to OJ? You're related to OJ Webb?
Winfrey.
Okay.
I'm a real Winfrey. My lineage is from Kosciuszko.
Okay. Well, we'll be honored to have you join our descendants, our registry of national descendants. So we need to build soon.
Excellent. Okay. Well, going forward, praise God. So I'm excited to know that we have a local Black agenda that's being rolled out, not only to the local elected officials, our state elected officials, that there are public policy agenda items in place, city ordinances in place, and that there is a level of accountability. We may not necessarily agree on the language, but we know ultimately we have to hold their feet to the fire. And I think we can all agree on that language.
That's right.
Another thing that we need to do with anything that we do, we need to have an implementation aspect of the legislation and also an enforcement. Because one of the things that I'm looking at with the teaching of Black history in CPS, they have that, but there was never a rollout, an implementation, and no enforcement. So that also needs to be couched in our legislation. Because the thing that they're pushing back in CPS about Black history, they're like, we don't know how to teach it.
Guess what,
that's why we need you as a lawyer.
Guess what? The election results are in as of yes. Drum roll, please. Lori Lightfoot is the new mayor of Chicago with 267,978 votes to Tony Preckwinkle's 93,244 votes.
She got spanked.
Yeah. Melissa Conyers Irvin is at 203,000, and the city treasurer, none of the votes are official yet other than the mayor's race. City treasurer Melissa Conyers Irvin is at 203,130 votes to Amaya Pawar's 141,066 votes.
Don't sit down.
Will Calloway is at 3,577 votes to Leslie Hairston's 3,812 votes. And I'm going to scooch on down to the 46th ward because I want to see where Sister Marianne Lalonde is. She's at 4,081 votes to James Kappelman's 4,129 votes. These aldermanic races are extremely close. Yes. And then we have the Andre Vasquez is still leading, 4,354 votes in the 40th ward to Patrick O'Connor's 4,073 votes. And yeah, woo, it looks like Jeanette Taylor is in the lead with 2,546 votes to Nicole Johnson's 1,769 votes. So, yeah, that developer issue with the demolition of the Cook County Land Bank and the historic bank over there, I believe it's off of 63rd or 64th Street. One of the elders leaned in to whisper in my ear, you need to, I know you're going to talk about housing at the mayoral candidates election, the mayoral candidates forum with the Mayor Harold Washington Legacy Committee that Miss Josie Childs leads. The one thing that he asked Brother Harold Lucas asked me to do was to discuss the land bank issue. And I absolutely did. I posted those sound bites on social media just to give people an idea of how Tony Preckwinkle would respond. And it wasn't favorable with regards to the land bank. She, believed that the land bank was performing, that they were doing a great job, and the community does not feel the same way. The community hasn't necessarily benefited from the land bank properties. Developers have, and the current executive director is a developer from Texas. But again, how does that impact organizations when each of us have nonprofit organizations like you, Brother David? How have you benefited from the land bank? Any colleagues close to you that you know who have benefited from purchasing land bank properties in bulk? I don't know many. And the few colleagues who I do know that have benefited from land bank properties have forgotten about the community once they receive the check. And they know who they are. I don't need to start naming names. But again, once you take that bad check, people tend to turn a blind eye on the community. None of us, in the name of Jesus, thank the Lord, have taken that bad check. So going forth, as we continue to hold their feet to the fire, Sister Lori did respond favorably to the questions that I asked, specifically with regards to workforce training development and how that will impact the community, particularly on the west side of Chicago, where again, 1/3 of the Illinois Department of Corrections budget comes, nearly 1/3 comes from the Austin community. And like I told her, reentry, the discussion about reentry and how our reentering citizens, those programs and what we're going to do for them. And I think that's great. But how do we stop our young people from entering the system to begin with? We have to give them adequate programs that make sense, and we cannot continue to allow developers from outside of our community to come into our community and take up the TIF dollars, soak up the land, soak up the money, leave us in food deserts without financial institutions. We can't even hold the banks accountable through the Community Reinvestment Act because we don't have banks in our communities. Sister Lori agreed, and she said she would do everything in her power to ensure that those developers are held accountable, that there's a workforce training, fair bidding process in place. And I asked a very specific question as to if at least 50% of the employees on these TIF funded projects with our tax dollars will be from that ward. And she said yes, because that was a 3-part question. And I needed to be sure that we understood each other clearly. But again, going back to the very beginning of the conversation, she did say, I may retract some statements. And that concerned me. Yeah. So I keep going back to that. But I believe at this point, since Lori Lightfoot is our new mayor, and it's official that Melissa Conyers Irvin is our new city treasurer, that we have to give them a chance. We have to give them an opportunity to say what they mean and do what they say. And it's just that simple. And we have to hold their feet to the fire. The level of accountability and transparency must be in place. And with the Black agenda being rolled out, I believe that this is a new time for our communities, and that ultimately we have the opportunity to work collectively to ensure that our people who may feel as if they don't have a voice now understand that they do have a voice, that they do have a place and a seat at the table, and that their vote does matter. So we're getting ready to close out. Any closing encouraging words from Sister Helen and and Brother David Peterson?
Well, the only thing that I would say in the words of my children in the hood, don't be on that check grab.
Okay.
That's what they call it. They said it's not clout chasing, it's a check grab. Don't be on the check grab.
Okay.
And I just want to end with quoting the great ancestor Frederick Douglass: power concedes nothing without a demand. So it's time for us to put our demands directly on the table and move forward with accountability and enforcement of those agenda items.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Real quick, we are at the race for the updates with the mayoral runoff. Lori Lightfoot leading with 288,784 votes to Tony Preckwinkle's 100,920 votes. Melissa Conyers Irvin is at 219,983 votes to Amaya Pawar's 151,390 votes. William Calloway is currently at 3,892,000 votes to Leslie Hairston's 4,236 votes. Deborah Foster Bonner in the 6th Ward is at 46.6% of the vote percent of the race to Roderick T. Sawyer's 53. He has 53.4%. Yeah. In the 15th Ward, Raymond Lopez is at 62.7% of the vote to Rafa Yanez at 37.3% of the vote. Stephanie Coleman is in the 16th ward is at 66.4% of the vote to Tony Folks, 1,422 votes. Nicole Johnson has 40.2% of the vote to Jeanette B. Taylor's 59.8% of the vote. Howard Brookins is leading with 52.8% of the vote to Marvin McNeil's 47.2% of the vote. In the 25th ward, Acevedo is at 46.3% of the vote to Lopez's 53.8%. In the 30th ward, Gutierrez is at 47.9% to Reboyas 52.1%. In the 31st ward, Cardonia is at 55.3% to Santiago's 44.7%. Deborah Mell is at 48.3% of the vote to Rodriguez Sanchez's 51.7% of the vote. Murphy is at, in the 39th ward, is at 43.6% of the vote to Nugent's 56.4% of the vote. And Andre Vasquez is leading with 52.3% of the vote to Patrick O'Connor's 47.7% of the vote in the 40th ward. In the 43rd ward, Lynn Bloom is at 46.1% of the vote as Michelle Smith leads with 53.9%. In the 46th ward, this is nail biting. James Kappelman is at 4,602% to 4,602 votes to Marianne Lalonde's 4,613 votes.
Whoa.
Matt Martin in the 47th ward leads by 9,836 votes to Michael Negron's 5,960 votes. So this has been an extremely historic election. The fact that we've been involved in this election, the fact that we've seen so many people roll their sleeves up and get involved. Although we had low voter turnouts, let's be clear, we didn't have the same budget that the governor's race had. So although more millennials turned out for the governor's race, Pritzker put hundreds of millions of dollars into the governor's race, okay?
Yeah.
Which meant that the streets received door knocking money, canvassing money, caller money. There was, he spent nearly $15 million for data alone just for the state. Unfortunately, the local elected officials and the local candidates didn't necessarily have that budget. But I'll tell you one thing, all of these candidates, I have to applaud them because I know what it's like to be a candidate, and it's not easy. The fact that they made it to the runoff is God's will. It's a blessing, regardless of which side they're on. I pray that God's will is done and that these candidates are righteous, whomever makes it into that seat, and that they do their job for the people. Because guess what? Again, we get back to that level of accountability. I believe people will hold them accountable. And you have millennials who are fed up. You have elders who are fed up. And now that we have that intergenerational component in place, we are working together. And Brother David, as you can attest to the fact that you've been in the room with elders and millennials and zennials and every other age group going into the 90s, even nearly 100-year-old elders like Dr. Black, who are still involved in the impact and how politics impacts our daily lives. So I'm thankful and grateful for you all to be on the show with me today. I'm thankful that we had the opportunity to discuss these important points in the city, dealing with the city of Chicago's mayoral race, the city treasurer's race, and the aldermanic runoff races in each of the wards. So it looks like Lori Lightfoot is our new mayor in the city of Chicago, and Melissa Conyers Irvin is our new city treasurer. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as we sign off on Intellectual Radio, iHeartRadio, Consumer Legal Hour with the Justice Team, we are the change that we want to see in our communities. And let's be that blessing as we pay it forward. God bless you all and have a good night. Thank you.